Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard the T-64A, and this is the newly added rank 6 Russian main battle tank / medium tank. Do I like it? Yes. Is it as good as the MBT-70 or the Kampfpanzer 70? Well, not quite in the overall stats, and I will present you a lot of stats, much like on tank reviews, and you will see that this tank doesn't really seem to be very convincing. However, I still like it because it is a very typical Russian tank. It is reliable and it has armor and it's relatively stock grind friendly. So you don't need too many upgrades to, well, strike your enemies with very efficient rounds, or rather efficient. You lack ATGM much like the T-62, and in overall raw shape and appearance it might just look like one, except those side flaps, pedals, whatever. And watch the engagement right here. You'd be dead. But his HESH shell just demolishes my side panels and does not reach the side armor. And that gives me enough time to then strike down his gunner, aim for the front of the tank and just finish him off. This is something that I observed very frequently. Now, I will not give you a full rundown on the armor because this will be part of the tank review that I want to make on this tank. And, well, the armor is a special thing. Now, I will compare this tank to the MBT-70 or the Kampfpanzer 70. And I will do it in a way that I do it in my tank reviews. And while you enjoy the stats, the upcoming stats, well, enjoy also the background footage of 4 different battles. So here we can see that the T-64A from 1971, which is in the game, has a 125mm smoothbore, fully gun stabilized 2A46-1 gun with 37 rounds in total. The reload of this autoloader, which you have the same on a stock crew as and on an ace crew, is 7.1 seconds, and you have a turret rotation speed of 20 degrees per second. And that is not very impressive when you compare it to the Kampfpanzer 70's 152mm XM150E5 gun / launcher, which has 48 rounds in total of ammunition capacity for a 6-second reload autoloader, and that is a not insignificant advantage, as well as the 36 degrees of turret rotation speed per second, and also, well, the gun depression -6 compared to -10, +14 compared to +20, and then the elevation speed. Well, the KPZ-70 fights just in a different league, it might look like. But that's not the full story, as I will point out at the end. Now let's talk about the mobility comparison. And again, a lot of red for the Soviet T-64A. Well, that was actually not intended as a joke, but you know, 700 horsepower is nothing bad, especially for 38.0 tons. That gives you a horsepower to ton ratio of 18.4 for the T-64A. That is awesome, but not coming even close to the ridiculous 29.0 horsepower per tons for the KPZ-70. The top speed is comparable, 61 for the T-64 compared to 64 for the KPZ-70. I hope you don't get confused by the numbers here, but that just is also a bit deceiving, because the 61 kilometers per hour, you really do not actually see that often in the T-64, whereas you are always coming close to the 64 on the KPZ-70, and then there is the reverse speed. Oh boy, did the Russians build another Panther variant? No, they tried to be fancy and to save money for the additional reverse gears. It seems like -4 kilometers an hour is atrociously bad. Again, when we compare it to the, you know, fantastic -64 kilometers an hour for the KPZ-70, that's practically off scale. And then, this is also amplified by the fact that you have no neutral steering for the T-64, but you have it for the KPZ-70. That means the KPZ-70 not just beats you in the gun handling and reload speed, but also in the overall mobility aspect. So let's just quickly look at the ammunition. And well, the ammunition is finally the part where the T-64 has a slight advantage. Not just in variety, which is not that important, I have to hasten to add here, but overall the stock grind. Now, when we look at the overall stats for the KPZ-70, we realize that you first have to research the APF-SDS shell as a tier 2 upgrade, because you have no solid shot or no kinetic energy based weapon system for the KPZ when it's stocked, which highly influences its playstyle. And for the T-64, we have quite a different story, to be fair here, because the stock shell, the 3BM9, has 310mm of penetration and fantastic 1,800 meters per second. I think that is currently the fastest shell in the game. This is ridiculously fast, and you also keep the penetration to a certain degree, up to 263mm at 2000 meters flat on, and the normalization stats are actually positive this time for APF-SDS. So that means it corrects itself into the line of sight, or even further, to dig itself further into the armor by a few degrees. That is fantastic. That means this shell, despite being very similar in terms of penetration to the L7 APDS, which has around 303mm of penetration against flat armor at 10 meters distance, you are reliable, and the damage output is really great. It's not fantastic like an APHE shell, but it's great. It's dealable, especially with the rather quick reload. Again, the reload with 7.1 seconds is fantastic. It's just the case that the Kampfpanzer 70 is with 6.0 seconds just simply faster. And this is a common theme for the T-64. It's a fantastic tank, but overall, fully upgraded, the Kampfpanzer 70 is just better. It's outright better. And again, this does not tell you the full story, because you do not just fight the Kampfpanzer 70, you also fight other tanks, and against them you're a pure bully, but still they can defeat you. I do not go through the armor in comparison, because well, it's a bit tricky to deal with this armor, and I have no idea where this guy was and how he spotted me there. I just preemptively pushed the smoke generator, and yeah, this is with 2 crew members, you're as effective as with 3 crew members, thanks to the autoloader. Then the upgraded APF-SDS shell, which is a tier 2 upgrade, much like the Kampfpanzer 70, is the 3BM12 with 383mm of penetration, and again 1,800 meters per second, which again is very good and outright fantastic. But you know, the Kampfpanzer 70, it's not really that much worse. It's comparable. Just the muzzle velocity is significantly lower, but still very high on the Kampfpanzer 70. So this advantage is practically meaningless. And then the Heat FS shell, well, for the T-64, it's a tier 1 upgrade with 440mm, and that's an actual shell with 905 meters per second muzzle velocity, compared to the ATGM that the Kampfpanzer 70 has stock with 431 meters per second. On the other hand, you know, it's always a question, it's always a debate. What is better, an ATGM versus a big Heat FS shell? With an ATGM, you're accurate at long range, but you need to stay on target, and the target can get into cover or do some quick movements to throw off target, literally. And you know, 323 meters per second of maximum speed on the trajectory is not the fastest out there. It's not terrible for an ATGM, but for a real combat discussion or comparison, it's not good. And when you take the entire picture, I think the T-64 overall is a bit more forgiving. It's a bit more noob-friendly, I'd say. And it's not as punishing in the upgrade way. Now, if you noticed the last commentary yesterday that I did on the Kampfpanzer 70, I used nothing but the APFSDS shell. And when I tried out the ATGM, it just went wild everywhere because I was so fast, and how the game calculates the launch and so on. It was not very good. So the big drawback that the Kampfpanzer 70 has stock is that it has not the ability to accurately shoot and hit a target very fast with a projectile that is based on kinetical energy and not chemical energy based weapon systems like ATGMs, heat or heat whatever. So that's a drawback. You can't shoot through walls. You have difficulties shooting through woods. It's a big mess, I have to say. And yeah, thankfully it's a tier 2 upgrade, so it's not as drastic as, for example, the stock brand on the M47 pattern or the M48. So I got here again shot in the side and it was absorbed. I got hit by an ATGM, I guess. And again, I just lost one crew member and the driver just got Simpsons mode. So yeah, it's not that bad. So I try here and that ATGM, or what is it? Was it a big shell? I don't know. Well, it missed me and that's good. I have to say that those side panels, those flaps, I nearly said flaps, really. Well, they are more than you think. They really lower the amount of penetration that HeatFS shell has. So you can actually side scrape against Leopard, something that you can't dream of in the Kampfpanzer 70, because the side armor on the Kampfpanzer 70 is so ridiculously weak, with up to something 23 millimeters. So every AAA, even with the stock belts, has no problems whatsoever punishing you hard. The same goes a little bit for the Kampfpanzer 70, but it overall has stronger side armor. And also those panels. And you know, it's always those snapshots, those roughly thrown in the direction shells that punish you in not armored vehicles, but are something that a Russian vehicle usually can deal better with. I say better with in terms of dealing. So I guess the T-64 is also a tank that we have to look at and just simply say, stop the hyping. It's a good all-around vehicle. I like it. It's reliable, but it's not an absolute bully, despite the showing here in the background. I have been penetrated by Raketenjagdpanzer 2s, not the HOT, but I have no doubt that that can go through its armor as well. And there you could see, I angled against a Leopard, he hit the side panels and just did nothing. So when you angle, you're immune to heat, or more or less immune to heat, hull-wise, and also to hash. But again, you have, well, it's simulating a little bit era, because after one hit, those side panels are gone and you can't get them back in a cap. As far as I know, would be a little bit overpowered, really. The turret is strong, except directly next to the guns, or right next to the gun, left and right. You can punch through it, but then again, you need high penetration APDS shell, because it has the same kind of armor working mechanic on the turret front like the early T-54s against the long 88. Technically, you could go through with a lot of stuff. Practically, it's tricky. That's my experience so far. So this is the last gameplay, and we are here on the Fulda Gap map, and I love this map. I just love the look of it. I love the open kind of nature of it, but yet the possibility of hiding and just using the terrain to your advantage to ambush people where they don't expect it. Again, I haven't played it too much, but so haven't my enemies. And I think that's kind of the sweet flavor at the moment for War Thunder at rank 6. At rank 6, yeah, rank 6 is a bit sick. And I really have to summarize it here. Both the Kampfpanzer 70, which I have driven so far for a few battles, and also the T-64, they both feel completely different to what you're used to in RB so far. They bring a bit of arcade feeling to RB in terms of mobility and how relaxed you can drive. But the conjunction of the stabilizer, the powerful guns, the really quick reload, it again gives you a kind of a feeling of this relaxed, laid-back 1st of April Fool's event feeling. But I think now we will have to see how it develops over, well, the next few days and months, especially in hindsight of the BR recalculation that Gaijin obviously wants to do. The addition of new tier 6 vehicles, some of the old tier 5s getting back into rank 6. I guess the Raketenjagdpanzer 2 Hot, which has no problems whatsoever dealing with this tank, will see rank 6. So I'm okay with this, and situational awareness is something. But the big difference compared to the Leopard, for example, is you are as fast overall like the Leopard. You have armor, you have a stabilizer compared to the rank 1 compared to the first one, not the A1, but the Leopard 1 in general. You don't have to go through an awful stock grind gun-wise, and you still have an amazing reload. And yeah, that summarizes it up. The reason why I don't make an initial tank review on it is, again, because I expect significant changes. Not nerfs to the vehicles themselves, but raise in BR, additional vehicle, or at least announcements. And what vehicles they actually can meet in battle. And that heavily influences how those tanks play out in future, both the Kampfpanzer 70 and the T-64. In a fight versus the Kampfpanzer 70, well, again, it is highly depending on which vehicle has which shell loaded and aims at which part of the tank and has actually which shell available to it. It depends on the brawling situation, or is it a long-range engagement? Are both tanks hull down? Are they fully upgraded? Have they support by teammates? I think it is true that the Kampfpanzer 70 has significant overall handling advantages. On the other hand, I think the T-64 still can deal massive damage. Again, going back to the stock shell, after I think 3 battles or so, I switched over completely to the stock shell because I was curious, what can you do with just a stock shell? And I found out it's completely sufficient for the job. It's completely sufficient for the task and can destroy every enemy that comes across. So I have to hasten to add that at the moment I never had to deal with a mouse. This might come as a surprise. On the other hand, most of the time when I died, it was due to APAG. Good old-fashioned APAG, as you could see in the first clip by Jagdtiger, where I just didn't look around the corner like I usually do, and it was punished heavily in one shot. A next thing is that this tank, much like the Kampfpanzer 70, is still fully operational with just 2 crew members, but overall has just 3. Well, this guy has no more at all. Yeah, again, speaking of situational awareness and reacting to it, I saw one of my team members pinging the map here, so that was the reason why I turned around in the first place to hunt this guy down. Again, it's a bit down to the tanker. which results might raise in an engagement. But compared to well, other stock tanks, again I have to add it here, this tank can still work when it's stock. Again, go for the, if you're upgrading this tank currently, go for the survival mode like repair kit and fire prevention system first, and go also for the gun upgrades and then the mobility, and then focus on the shells. At least that's the impression that I have right now. Funny fact for the autoloader, it doesn't get interrupted when it is when you do fire extinguishing. So you reload, and while you're reloading, you extinguish a fire, and that resets the reload. Doesn't happen with an autoloading system though. Again, also with 2 crew members, you still have the very same reload as with 3 crew members. But then you will no longer survive a penetration. Although I have to say, I never died to an ammo rack explosion, despite the center of the tank being completely full with ammunition. So another point that I wanted to just make is the spawn point protection. Now you can see it covers like, what is it, nearly 20% of the map for the enemy's spawn point protection. That's quite something, but then again the map is really huge. Oh my, that was a quick kill on a Flakpanzer and Skipad, still with hull brake mechanic, and well, I could really predict very easily where he was going thanks to its rotating antenna, which annoys the hell out of me when I have to play the Gepard, but also the Type 87. I just don't play the vehicles because of the rotating thing on top. I hope there is at some point an option to just disable it or to just demount it. I would pay golden eagles to get those things off my tank. They make me a bigger target, they give my position away, they make me easier to spot because something is moving despite the rest of the tank standing still. But this is nothing that the T-64 has to deal with. Overall, I think it is very likely that we see a massive PR change, especially to this vehicle compared to rank 5 vehicles, because they bring really a drastic, brutal arcade age into RB. I don't think that those tanks itself get nerfed again, but everything around it will change. One final word to the Hesh nerf and how ridiculous it is. I don't mention it because now the British tanks really suffer, but it's not just the British, it's all the tanks like the Leopard, the M60s, the STB-1, the Type 74 and so on. They all suffer at the hands of the Hesh, especially for their upgrading process, because Hesh was kind of a stopgap filler or a very good alternative to HeatFS, especially it was cheaper, and when you faced mostly Russian tanks, it just did the job fine. But now how it works out, it's just, I'm not complaining about the new mechanic, how the spalling works or how the spalling was reduced, while it's still ridiculous. I'm talking about where exactly the border is for the penetrations, and that's exactly what I don't like. So to sum it up, I like the T-64 despite having overall worse stats than the Kampfpanzer 70, which is over the top and off the scale and just the king of RB right now. Let's say it like that. And at this point in time, I guess I stop the commentary. I'm really interested what you think about the entire topic. Let me know in the comment section, and please don't forget to like this video. I would highly appreciate it. Let me know also how you like the shape of this comparison, if it is a good comparison or a good option to the normal tank reviews, which are more in-depth but also more stats relying and just have a different commentary style. Let me know in the comment section what you like better. Furthermore, if I don't get footage from the actual patch. I wanted to prepare you for the possibility that there will some Blitzkrieg video out there, not the game, but you know, the one and only German tank that really strikes fear into the heart of the Allies. I'm not talking about the mouse. But I also wanted to prepare you for a video in the Panzer IV-H that I did in German. So let me know if you want to see that video. Again, that's it for me today, so thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Again, please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.